Today we're here at North Dakota at a place called the Rainy Buttes, and I want to tell a story about a Crow man named Iron Eyes, and this is where he died. And I heard this story from several sources. One from Yellowbrow, my grandmother, my dad's mother's cousin, and he was a very good storyteller, and he was the one that taught me how to tell stories. And another version is from my great-grandfather, my mother's adopted father. And I can't tell exactly what date this event happened, but there was another man that told this story, and he was born in 1840, and he was about 18, 19 years old when this happened, so I think it's about 1859 when this happened. Before this, Iron Eyes became an important military man. He had a lot of coups. He took horses and he counted coup on his enemy. He took weapons away from them. And he also cut horses in front of a teepee. So now he was a chief. People looked up to him. And Iron Eyes in one battle got shot with an arrow that was ricocheted off something and hit him in the eye, right next to the eye. So he had a white spot in his eye. And he was ashamed of this and would not go into public, and when he did, he covered his eye. And so his father searched and finally found a trader that had glasses, dark glasses he found somewhere, and Iron Eyes always used this, and that's why they called him Iron Eyes. And before that, they called him Bear That Bites. His father would take his son in front of him and he would sing his praise song. And then when he sang his praise song, he would tell his friend, he would hit him in the chest and he would say, Iron Eyes, my son, I don't want you to live until you're old. When you do this, there won't be anything good for you when you're old. I want you to die while you're young. He said, I want you to die before you have children. I want you to die before your teeth get bad and you have toothaches. I want you to die when you're perfect and you're young and you're handsome. I want you to die when you go out and your enemy surrounds you and your friends look around with fear in their eyes and they're trying to escape. Do not be like this. Don't try to escape, but turn and run into the midst of the enemy. And if they kill you, I will come and look for your bones. Make me proud of you. I want to sing your praise song when you die. And so that's why Iron Eyes did this. When this happened, it was about this time, it was springtime, when choke cherries and plum trees blossom in the springtime. That's when they have their sacred ceremonies. Some of the crows get together and they have tobacco planting ceremony. They also have sun dances and they have medicine bundle openings. And this is a peaceful, happy time, and no weapons were supposed to be taken out of the teepees. And this was a time when the young men would go out. Those that have war honors would put on their war shirts, their military regalia. Sometimes they would take their girlfriends or their wives behind them and go around the camp, and they would go around singing their songs. These songs have been passed on, and we still have them today. One of them is Much go de gyostosh kama koke ahe ahe ma ho hawa he ahe. When the young men were anxious to go to war at this time, warfare was very important to the Crows in this period. They thought the other tribes were trying to take their land away from them. So they were constantly fighting them to keep them away, and so that they would not hunt their buffalo, elk, or deer. A military man was had a lot of influence among the Crows. They were used in their ceremonies. They would make them tell their military feats, and they believed that this would help them have a successful ceremony. So during this time, they picked young men to tell their military feats, and the young men were anxious to go to warfare, and they were excited from singing these songs, these rousing military songs. So their spirits were up. They were anxious to go to have them finish the ceremony so that they could fight their enemy. And because they were so anxious, they overdid it. They would joke with each other, and they would josh each other, and I think at one point it got out of hand. One got excited and became angry, and so he challenged his friend. He said, "Well, you think you're such a military man. If I go out today, would you join me?" And the other one said, "Yes, let's go. Let's go right away." So they parted. They got their weapons and their other extra magazines and everything that they needed. Their weapons, everything that they needed. And then their friends came and started to join them. One group, their friends, and the other group got all his friends ready. And now they were anxious to go, and there were at least 100 men gathering to go to war. And this was a peaceful time. And so the parents of the men that were going to war urged them not to go. Some of them would even hang on to them and would not let them go. But they still insisted on going, and they were sneaking off. And so one group went over to a famous warrior called Young Buffalo Bull Rises Small. And the other one, and when he accepted this pipe, they usually did not refuse it. If a pipe was refused offered to you, you had to take it. So he took this pipe, and then when he did this, his brother-in-law came and joined him. His name was Blackbird on the Ground. And now they had a military leader on one side, so the other side went to a man called White on the Side. And so White on the Side also accepted the pipe. And now his friend Long Otter came and joined him. So now there were two groups of men going out to war. And as they were leaving, they sang the song that they sing just before going out on a war party. They usually did this at night. They never did it in the daytime, and that was a taboo. It was against their culture. So they were singing the songs that they sing before they go on a war party. And when they did this, some more parents came out and grabbed their horses' reins and would not let them go. So 74 finally came to the east to fight their enemy. And 8 women joined them, the wife of Young Buffalo Bull Rises Small, and others, the wives of the other men that were coming, joined them. And one of them had a baby, about a 4-month-old baby. And then they brought 2 boys, ages 11 or 12, to herd the horses. And they had about 50 head of horses with them, extra horses. And so they came out and they did what they usually did. They would tell jokes about each other, josh with each other, and have a good time. And they would make up songs about each other. And as they were coming, they were slowly coming along. It took them 21 days to get here. Sometime during that time, they came to Little Missouri. And there they killed a young heifer. And now they were ready to fight. After they feasted on the heifer, each one got up and pledged himself, I'm going to this battle for my mother, or for my sister, or for my aunt, or my uncle, or brother. So they pledged themselves at this time, and now they were a war party, and it was a secret society. Whatever they did from then on was not told to other people. And they became one at that time. And now some of them opened their medicine bundles and started singing their songs, their energy songs. hey, ah, hey, hey, ah, hey, hey, ah, hey, ah, Hashem be my hey, ah, hey, ah, hey, Iwa Jima Suck Dajike, ah, hey. So when they started singing themselves, now they were excited. They were urging their leaders to find the enemy. And now, right on the side, smoked his pipe and opened his medicine bundle, and he saw a big camp of the Sioux to the east. So now they were going faster. They were going faster, and they finally came to in the evening. They came to a point. Probably about 10 miles from here, there's some hills. They said behind the hill was a huge camp. What they could see by the smoke that it was a huge camp. So they camped there for the night, but they were ready to go. They could not sleep. They were wandering around, ready to go do battle. And they were not scared of the enemy because they were the best fighters in the Crow tribe, and they had strong medicine, just strong energy with them. So they knew that they were going to wipe out whoever they met. And then finally, when light came, they put on their talismans. They put on their talismans, their bundles. They opened them up and then started singing. And now this got them more excited. They could not hold themselves back. And before they left, young Bull Rises Small told his wife, he said, way up there, maybe about 100 miles walk, is the Hidatsa camp. He said, if the enemy pushes back and we have to run, you run that way to the Hidatsa village. And so they told him what to do, exactly what to do, and then they went. Now they were running, charging the teepee, although they were about 2-3 miles to the south. And then when they came onto the camp, they started running through the camps, and everybody that came out, they were surprised. So they were killing a lot of men that were coming out, and they were killing them and tearing down the teepees and shooting up everything that they saw. And unknown to them, there was a large war party that had left the day before, and they were coming back, and they missed each other as they were going, as the crows were there. They missed each other, but they were coming back, and then they heard the fighting, and the women also heard it. And the women were in a sort of a hollow where they could not see out. They could not see who was coming or going. And so they were there, and they were ready to run. They got their horses ready to go, and young Buffalo Bull Rises Small told his wife, and told her, he said, that black mare is the fastest horse in this bunch. He said, when the enemy comes, you get on that horse and you whip her. If you don't whip her, she won't run. And she said, just run, and you'll get away from anything that is there. And so the women were told exactly what to do, and now they were fighting. And unknown to them, there was another camp just beyond a ridge. And this were the Sioux. And then another bunch on the other side, which were the Hunkpapa. And they were in the, I think it was the Tetons or the Santees that they were fighting. And they were tearing them up and mauling everything that would come out. But now this hunting party came and then they started fighting them. There was a big fight between the hunting party and the Crow war party, and then the Hunkpapas and the Sioux started coming, and now they were probably 1,000 warriors fighting them, and they were in a melee fighting this way and that, going back and forth, dust flying, people singing, crying, yelling. And it was a big mess. You couldn't tell who was what, but the Crows stuck together at this time. The young Bull Rises Small was trying to go to where his wife was. And he was slowly going that way, fighting, but slowly moving that way. And then they surrounded him. So he was finally, his horse was so tired that he jumped off and started fighting the Sioux on foot. But they overcame him and they killed him. And then his brother-in-law, Blackbird on the ground, jumped down and he started fighting also, and they killed him. So now they were split up into 3 groups, and the group under Young Bull Rises Small was the Iron Eyes became the leader. The middle group that was running westward was Long Otter, and then the third group to the south was white on the side, and later the white people called him Iron Bull. And so now there were 3 groups running this way, three little groups with huge dust rising behind them, and all the Sioux in the world were chasing them this way. As they were coming, they were closer to Iron Eyes because they had been fighting. This group had been fighting with them, and now they were right behind them. So Iron Eyes would run back and hold them back, and then run back. And he had a light bay horse, and his ears were split, and he was a thoroughbred, and he could run fast and run for a long time. So he would run back and forth, and hold back the enemy, and then back forth. And then the other bunch under Long Otter was the same way. They were closing in on him, so he had to fight them and run back. But the bunch under White on the side, their horses were so fast that they were getting away from them. And the Iron Eyes kept fighting them and running back. And now his friends' horses were getting exhausted, and some of them were getting shot. They were shot out from under their riders, so he would run back and put them behind his horse and come back. And this was going on, and it was early in the morning, probably about 8 o'clock when the fight started. So now it was about afternoon when they were in this area. They were running here. Maybe they were trying to build a barricade here and try to hold off the enemy. But they came to this area here, and then his friend, Only Boy's horse was killed just before they got here. And now he was running around trying to fight them and hold them off. But then there were so many of them that he called out to Iron Eyes. Iron Eyes, help your little brother. I'm in trouble, help me. So Iron Eyes went back and took him behind his horse and started coming this way. But they were so close that they shot arrows into the horse, into the horse's hips, and arrows were sticking out everywhere. And he also had some arrows in his back sticking out. But then they got away from the enemy, and he brought them to his group. And he told Only Boy to jump off and go. And at this point, his horse was so exhausted. And he himself was exhausted, and maybe he knew he was in trouble. He was hurt from all the arrows. So at this point, he decided that he would do what his father kept telling him to do. So he went up to a high point and got on a high point, and then he started singing the Crazy Dog, Ready to Die song. And then he sang this 3 times, and then he came down and he yelled out to his group, and he said, if any of you get home, be sure to tell my father to look for my bones here. And he said, and I will do what he told me to do. He said, when your enemy surrounds you and your friends are looking around with fear in their eyes and are trying to escape, do not be like them, but run toward the enemy, and I will look for your bones there. So tell them to look for my bones here. And then he ran towards the enemy. But there were so many of them, and they were ready for him. They shot so many arrows into him and his horse that they did not touch the ground. And then Only Boy went, but then he came back and he said, yeah, Iron Eyes is not the only crow today. I will also die like a crow. So he got off his horse and started charging the enemy. And then 3 others came, Golden Eagle, 3 Thighs, and Loin also came and said, today I will die like a man and go home to my father. I will fly through the air. And so they all jumped off and they started fighting. The Sioux surrounded them, and the rest ran back. And now they were fighting them, and they fought them for a long time, and they finally killed them. But then when they killed them, they stopped. And then in the middle, white on the sides group, there was a man there. They were running, they were getting away from them, but then he was tired of running from the enemy. He said, today I came to fight the enemy, not to run away from them. He said, I'm going to get off and fight the enemy here. And his nephew, his sister's son was with him. His name was Strong Falcon. And so he expected him to get off his horse and fight with him. But Strong Falcon kept going. And we saw that he was leaving him. He yelled to him, he said, Strong Falcon, when you get home, whose horses are you going to ride? And so when he said that, Strong Falcon came back and they both got off, and the Sioux surrounded them and they were fighting them, and finally his uncle was killed. But they could not kill Strong Falcon. His medicine was the bear, and the teeth came out and he would run over and pull down the rider and kill them. And he was doing this, and but they finally killed him. So now they were chasing Long Otter. Long Otter ran up to a place called Old Creek in Wyoming. And at this point, his group of horses were getting tired. And then every time they stopped, there would be a man in the middle, a Sioux man in the middle, and he would be pointing and yelling. And Long Otter did not like this, a man that would not fight but stand there and yell and scream at his people. So he got off his horse, and then he signed to this man. He said, you yonder, do you see me? And the man said, I know what you are doing. And then he said, you stand there and you yell and scream, but fighting you do not do. He said, today I want to fight with you. We will see who is the better man today. You come and we will fight. And so this man came down. He came down, they went towards each other. And the Sioux had a bow and arrow. A Long Otter had a muzzle loader. And one of the worst things about a muzzle loader is that the bullet will fall out if you point it down. So when the Sioux man came, he drew his arrow and shot at him. But it hit the barrel of the rifle and ricocheted and almost hit his ear. And in that instant, Long Otter raised his weapon and he fired at him almost point blank, but it was covered with powder, but nothing happened to him because the bullet fell out. And so the man tried to pull another arrow out of his quiver. But in that instant, Long Otter jumped over there and grabbed him by his wrist and pulled him towards him and cut him open. And when he did this, he threw him aside, and then he pointed at the Sioux. All of you, one at a time, you come and I will fight you. But they would not come. And unknown to him, this man was an important chief. He was called Jumping Buffalo, the father of Sitting Bull. And so when they killed him, the Sioux stopped fighting. And they started to cry. They were all mourning for this man. And they told Long Otter to go home. Today you made us poor and you made us cry. Go home. So they did. They went home unmolested. And then the other group under White on the side, they ran away. They couldn't catch them, so they finally ran until they got to Lake Dismet. And when they got there, the first group, even though their horses were tired, they made them drink the water from the lake. And after they drank their fill, their muscles were in the water, and you could see the bubbles coming out as they were drinking the water. But as soon as they were full and they went back on the bank, they fell down dead. They were dizzy, and then they spun around, and then they fell down dead. And 3 horses died, but the rest of the group that were coming, they stopped them, and then they cooled them off, and then they drank the water, and then they were okay. the men under Iron Eyes came home, but they came home separately in one or two. And the first ones to reach home somewhere on the Yellowstone, reached their camp, came in the middle of the night, and it was almost daybreak when they came, so they gave him food and they were eating. And the other people learned what happened, and now they were all gathered around this teepee trying to find out what the news was, what happened to the war party. No Neck knew that the war party had returned. And so he put on his best clothes, all his war honors, and he painted his face and he fixed his hair. And then he was going to celebrate. He thought that his son would come back and he was going to celebrate. So he went over there, and when he came, the people moved aside. So he went up to the door of the teepee, and the men were inside eating. And he said, "Hey, you inside. What happened to my son, to Iron Eyes? What did he do today?" And the people inside, it was quiet for an instant, for a few moments. And then a voice inside said, "Iron Eyes is at Rainy Buttes. He did what you told him to do. He charged the enemy and they killed him there. He's dead there, and he wants you to look for his bones." He said, "I did what my father told me, and today I will go to my other father. I'm going to travel through the air and see my other father." And so when they said this, No Neck started to sing his praise song. Iron Eyes, my son, my very good son. You have done a very good thing today. I am very proud of you. You did what I told you to do. And then he sang it again. But then after he sang this, he tried to praise his son, but only tears came out, and he started to cry, and he said, Iron Eyes, my son, if I had 1,000 sons, I would not find another one like you." And so he started to cry, and he said, "It is a very bad thing that I have done. Why did I do it? The light bay horse with the split ears, and Iron Eyes, I will never see you again." And so he tried to walk away, but he fell down unconscious on his face. And then when they revived him, he tore off his clothes and with only his breechcloth, and took on an old blanket and started crying in the hills. And he did this every day. He would go out in the hills and cry. And finally, after 1 year, a Crow War party came and killed a lot of Sioux. So from that day on, he stopped grieving for his son. And that's the story of Iron Eyes.